Israeli Jewish settlers have also taken over St. John's Hospice, which is in the Christian quarter of the Old City. They have established a presence there. It belongs to the Greek Orthodox Church and was allegedly sold to them by a person who had no authority to do that from the church, and it is being hotly contested. Christian institutions in Jerusalem, most of which are located in East Jerusalem, are being very heavily taxed. The YMCA and Augusta Victoria Hospital are two that I had some pictures of, but many Christian institutions are finding themselves with, in the case of the YMCA, it was more than $100,000 in taxes, and that was in 2004 that they were being assessed. It's very difficult for them to stay in business and for the hospital to keep its doors open. I had dinner with a lovely couple, the director of the East Jerusalem YMCA and his wife, Ida, who's a librarian, in their home in East Jerusalem. But now East Jerusalem is being surrounded by a ring of settlements. If you can picture a sort of a donut, the right half of the donut, being built around what has always been the Arab area of Jerusalem. And this is an impenetrable wall which is designed to prevent the use of East Jerusalem as a capital of a Palestinian state. Hilltops everywhere. Settlements were expanding and still are. This hilltop used to be a forest. It was a gift from the King of Jordan to the people of Palestine, and it was a beautiful forest. This is a struggle about land. It is not an animosity between two peoples because of the religion they practice or because of anti-Semitism. It's a process of a people losing their land and water and opposing the loss of that land and water. It's also a process that is transforming the Holy Land, where it is still possible to feel the simplicity of life as it may have existed back in biblical times. Very little changed in many areas, and changing this beautiful landscape into a series of shopping malls, settlements, and industrial parks for the use of one ethnic group alone. Now, who are the Palestinians? We've heard a lot about Palestinians, and most of our images that we see in the media are very unflattering. They usually show people crawling on their bellies with guns and children with guns in their hands or belts on. These are not representative of the Palestinian people, and yet they are marketed to the media as if this is who we're dealing with the Palestinians. Now, can you imagine if during the 1960s we had European countries judging us by the Ku Klux Klan? I mean, this is an extreme bunch of people within the society, but it isn't the society as a whole. I found a very different reality when I was there. I found people going about their daily lives, people very much like us, teachers, doctors, farmers, nurses, librarians, going about their own daily lives with great dignity, amazing dignity, given the very desperate circumstances in which they live. Pictures cannot capture the warmth and the dignity of the Palestinian people. It's something that impresses everyone who goes, or their sacred relationship with the land that has sustained their families for thousands of years. For Christianity, there are very many reminders of our history in the Holy Land. The Church of the Nativity, the Mount of Beatitudes, which is still so still and quiet that you can almost picture Jesus standing at the top of the hill and speaking to the multitudes, because as the wind blows over the grass, it seems a timeless scene. The Sea of Galilee with the Golan Heights in the background, the Jordan River baptismal site of Jesus, and the church at Cana. And Capernaum, the town where Peter lived and Jesus often spoke on the Sea of Galilee. But this beautiful land is being destroyed. This beautiful agricultural land is being destroyed with the uprooting of trees and the destruction of agricultural land to make way for new settlements. The grazing land is being destroyed. There's still many shepherds that make their living that way. And the places for farmers to grow their crops are being destroyed. You see settlements on the tops of almost every hill. This is an outpost. You probably have heard the term outpost. This is a few trailers. This is usually how a new settlement starts. People go in trailers and they stay there until Israel connects them with electricity and water, as they have done in this area. They often do not connect sewers, however, and the sewage runs down on to Palestinian agricultural land. The growth in the West Bank settler population is something we need to understand. It really didn't begin until the 1980s in any measurable way. And it has grown today to be 462,000 Israelis who live on Palestinian territory that is occupied by Israel. Again, in violation of the Fourth Geneva Convention. Now, I mentioned the roadways. These roadways for settlers are for settlers only, and they're connecting the settlements. Palestinians can apply for a permit, but they're often not granted. There's 700 kilometers of these roadways that divide the area into these isolated pockets of despair. Trade and commerce and social life come to a standstill. The Palestinian roads are often blocked with debris, and the Israeli roads are lighted, beautiful highways paid for largely with our tax dollars, and they are a very different category of road altogether. Now, how would they keep Palestinians from those roadways, you might ask? Well, Palestinians have a different color license plate. They have a green license plate, and Israelis have a yellow license plate. The entrances to many of the villages along the road, if there are Arab villages along the roadside, which you see driving along, have been blocked. And their names have been taken off the road signs. So there are no longer, even the name of Jericho had been removed. This is the oldest continuously inhabited city in the world, and it had been removed for a time with only the name of the settlement looking down on Jericho remaining. But despite all these things, water remains probably the most powerful weapon that is used against the Palestinian people. And without going into all these columns, I think the most important thing to know is that the Palestinians in the far right table, you see the blue line represents the consumption of water that Israelis have for personal use. The red bar to the right represents what Palestinians consume. Palestinians have access to only 1/5 of the drinking water, the water for home use, that Israelis have. And the black bar is the World Health Organization recommended daily amount for human beings. So water is a huge issue here. The settlements, if you see the bar here between 1993 and 2000, that was the Oslo period when there was great hope throughout the world that peace was going to be achieved. In 1993 were the Oslo Accords, and all during the ensuing years leading up to Camp David, there were great preparations being made. Palestinian expatriates went back and started new companies, and the Palestinians revised their textbooks and to prepare for a new era of peace with Israelis. At the same time, unbeknownst to many of them, these settlements were increasing so that they actually doubled during that 7-year period before the parties went to Camp David. And we hear about this great generous offer, but Barak proposed keeping 85% of the settlers in 69 major settlement blocks, which would cut like giant fingers over the West Bank and keep contiguous state from being possible. You see in 2000 what the situation was like, and what it is like today, even further diminished.